What do you think makes someone a good leader?
When I have a worry-filled mind, I like to wander outside. No telling what we might find. Birds calling, worms crawling, leaves falling down from above. Oh, I plant my feet on the ground. I keep my head in the clouds. I let my feelings out loud. I hear joy calling, fear crawling, tears falling down out of love.
Welcome, friends. My name is Mrs. A, and I'm so glad you joined me today. We're going to start off by doing a feelings check-in. It's something we often do at the beginning of our time together. And the reason we do it is because it's important for us to learn about our feelings and emotions, also practice naming those feelings and emotions, and sharing them with the people around us, or even just out loud with ourselves. So I have a feelings poster that I've made for you, and it includes a lot of the different feelings that you may experience throughout a day or a week or a month. And there are no good or bad feelings, right or wrong feelings. But when we experience different feelings, they make our bodies and brains feel different ways. And so the more we practice naming them and sharing them and noticing them, the more comfortable we get with them. So I'd like you to take some time to look at this feelings poster and find the feeling that you're experiencing right now. Maybe you're not sure. That's okay. You can look at the faces on this poster and notice the different expressions they're making. That might help you figure it out. I'm going to make the poster bigger so you can see it, and we'll each take some time to look and find our feeling. Let's do it. Maybe you're feeling surprised. Surprised to learn that it's important to name and notice our feelings. Maybe you're feeling really loved because you were having some big feelings and no one had taken the time to notice them yet today. Maybe you're feeling really overwhelmed because there's a lot going on around you, or your brain feels really busy. Maybe you're feeling really friendly and excited to be trying something new or joining me again today. As you can see, there are so many different feelings that you may be experiencing, and all of them are okay to feel. Humans feel lots of different things throughout the day, and these are just some of them. But I appreciate when you take the time to practice and name your feelings, and I do it too. So, I'd like us now to share our feelings out loud. You can name the one you're experiencing, or maybe you've noticed a couple, that's okay too. Will you say your feeling with me in 3, 2, 1, happy? Oh, thanks so much for naming your feeling. I'm glad to hear about it. There are so many different feelings and emotions that we may experience, and if you're curious to learn a little bit more about some of them, be sure to subscribe to my channel by clicking that big red button. I often share different emotion short stories or little poems or almost short books that talk more about each emotion and help us understand them a bit better. So be sure to check out those if you haven't. And anytime I share a new one, if you're subscribed, you'll get a little notification about it. In addition to checking in with our feelings and noticing how our brains and bodies are, we always take some time to move and build our muscles and practice exercising together. It's helpful not only for our bodies and our brains and our hearts, but it's also a good way for us to manage some of our emotions or feelings, especially sometimes if we're feeling really sleepy or tired, or sometimes if we're feeling really stressed or overwhelmed. And so we use the date to help us exercise. And I know that you may be watching this video on a different day than when I'm sharing it. So if you need to change the number, that's totally fine. But we use the date I have for now to get us started. The date here is 3/23/22. And that means for me, it is March 23rd, 2022. So we are going to do 3 exercises, then 23, and then 22. But before we get started, we're going to check in with our friend Fig. They always show us one of our moves, but we have to try to guess. Make some observations here. What do you notice Fig is doing with their body? What type of move do you think they're showing? Looks like they're reaching down for something. We'll do their move for 23, but for now we'll start off with 3 jump squats. This is sure to get our heart beating and our body warmed up because we are going to try our best to squat down and then jump in the air and then squat again. And we'll do this 3 times. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome job. Thanks for trying out those jump squats. Now it's time for Fig's move. Fig, what are you showing us? Toe touches. Oh, awesome. Okay, we'll do 23 toe touches. And you can do these sitting or standing, whatever feels best for you. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Thanks, Fig, and thanks, friends. Now we have 22 moves left, and I thought we could do dance moves. I love doing dance moves because they could each be unique, just like all of us. Maybe you'd like to do the same dance move 22 times, or maybe you want to switch it up each time. Whatever feels best for your body and whatever works best in your space. Let's do 22 dance moves. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Some moving friends, thank you so much for exercising with me. Anytime we move our bodies and raise our heart rate and warm up our muscles, it's really helpful for us to cool back down by taking some cool down breaths. So when you hear a bell, you'll know to breathe in and fill your belly big and slowly let it out. Let's do it. One more. Awesome job. At the beginning of this episode, I asked what you thought makes a good leader. Today we're going to talk about 2 really incredible leaders. I have some books about them to share with you. But first, I want us to look at this message together that will tell us a little bit more info. In my journal here, I write our messages for each time we're together. And I also hide some alliterations and onomatopoeias. See if you can spot any. Dear bold and brave friends, have you ever used your voice to speak up when something was unsafe, unkind, or unreasonable? Maybe your friend said something that made you feel sad or uncomfortable, and you let them know. Maybe you noticed a ton of trash in your neighborhood and started cleaning it up. Maybe you saw a problem and had ideas of how to solve it. I think good leaders look out for others while being bold and brave. That could look like speaking up, taking action, or sitting still and listening. How have you been a leader lately? Love, Mrs. A. I'm wondering if any of my ideas about being a good leader match some of your ideas or thoughts about being a good leader. Being a leader often means modeling or doing what you think is good or safe or right. And so when we are leaders, we're usually speaking up and letting people know, doing something and taking action, or sitting and listening to the people around us to see what they need or how we can help. And oftentimes, being a leader requires us to be bold and brave. And I'm excited to share about some bold and brave leaders with you today. And what's really interesting about these two women is that they have a lot of similarities in their stories and their life experiences, but they also have a lot of differences. Not only were they born at different times, but they come from very different backgrounds. And so I am very eager to share these two incredible women with you and learn a bit more about their stories together. First, we're going to talk about Sojourner Truth. And Sojourner Truth was actually named Isabella before she changed her name. And her story starts out in a pretty unfortunate and really sad way, where she was enslaved. She was enslaved as a child. And people thought that you could own other people. They thought that was okay. And so she was born enslaved. And then we'll pick up this story right when she starts fighting for her freedom. And this book here, Only Passing Through, The Story of Sojourner Truth, is by Anne Rockwell with illustrations by R. Gregory Christie. From the day he made his promise, Isabella thought of nothing but her coming freedom day. She had a beautiful singing voice and sang out with joy every morning, for each day that passed brought the great one nearer. So it says that he made his promise. That means the man that owned her promised her her freedom in a year. So she's been counting down the days till she's no longer enslaved. It says, but then Isabella cut her right hand on a scythe and couldn't work in the fields. When her dreamed of freedom day finally came, Dumont, the man that owned her, said that since she hadn't done enough work for him in the past year, he figured that she owed him another year's worth of work. So even though she waited that whole year, because she had an injury from working, he said, you owe me another year. So he broke his promise and continued to try to own another person. Isabella was devastated that the master she'd trusted would betray her like that. She couldn't allow him to do this. She spent the next few days spinning every last bit of wool that had been sheared from Dumont's sheep. She planned to leave no work undone. She'd leave no reason for her children to be punished in her place. Isabella didn't sleep at all the night that she finished spinning. Before the sun rose, she walked away from the farm, taking for herself the freedom Dumont had promised her. So she wanted to make sure that she finished all of her work and kept her promises or her end of the agreement, even though it wasn't much of an agreement because she did not want to be enslaved. And she said, I'm going to leave. You promised me that I could be done after a year. And so she left. That was really bold and brave. And I'm so glad she did, because as you learn in this book, she went on to do some incredible things. And we're going to skip around a little bit. I want to share a couple special moments about Isabella and her life with you. In 1843, Isabella woke from a vivid dream. A voice had told her that she must leave New York. It said she was meant to travel around the country, telling of her time in bondage or being enslaved, telling people what it meant to be enslaved. She had to be a voice for all of the silent people who were enslaved and still in bondage. It was a powerful call, and Isabella was sure that it was God telling her to do this. She had only 25 cents, which she put in her apron pocket. She tied her few possessions together into a pillowcase, closed the door behind her, and began walking toward the sunrise. She crossed from Manhattan to Brooklyn on the ferry, then walked into the green countryside of Long Island. As she walked, memories of her life found words, and many were those she'd first heard in the Bible. One was sojourner. Isabella knew that it meant someone who was only passing through, staying a while and then moving on to another place. She now believed that she was meant to be a sojourner, always moving on to spread her message. And she knew she'd never serve any master but the truth. Isabella became a new woman that day. It was as though the life she'd known up until then had belonged to someone else. A new one was beginning. The old life had become a tale to tell, a story to bring freedom to others. Her old name belonged to her old life. From that day on, she never called herself Isabella again. Her name was Sojourner Truth. And here's this illustration where she's walking and thinking and reflecting on all of the obstacles and challenges that she's had to face and all of the experiences that we passed that really shaped her and really made her into this strong, bold, and brave woman. And she felt this call to go on and tell people what it was like to be enslaved and help people gain their freedom. Sojourner Truth found strong words for the message she had to deliver. She stood tall and dignified as a queen while she told many terrible truths about being enslaved. Of children stolen from their parents, of enslaved people crowded together in damp and filthy cellars, of masters who died leaving their slaves to the whims of others. She told about her father, an old man who froze to death alone in a shack in the woods. She told of beatings whose scars never healed. But Sojourner also told of the triumphs of taking freedom for herself, of using the law to bring her son back. As she spoke, she felt the power her words had and knew she'd never be afraid to speak before a crowd again. She made people listen. She made people understand. So when Sojourner Truth finally asked, "Is this a way to treat a human being?" people knew that the answer was no. It is never okay to try to own someone, or beat someone, or take someone from their family. And unfortunately, people that were enslaved experienced all of these things and more. And Sojourner Truth went and told people the truth. She went around and traveled and talked about the terrible things that were happening to other human beings. And it really helped people understand and see what was going on. And it helped people notice that things were happening that were not okay. And so Sojourner Truth was an incredible leader and brave, bold woman. And this book, Only Passing Through, is a really, really good book if you want to learn more about her and her life and many of the things that she experienced and went on to do. This next book here is about another brave and bold woman who was born a bit later than Sojourner Truth. And this is a book about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's called I Dissent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg Makes Her Mark. It's written by Debbie Levy with illustrations by Elizabeth Baddelli. And I am really inspired by Ruth Bader Ginsburg because she worked her whole entire life to fight for equality between men and women. And one thing that's similar about Sojourner Truth and Ruth Bader Ginsburg is that they both worked much of their life, if not their whole life, to help make the world a better place for people. People that looked like them and people that didn't look like them. And so I think that's really inspiring. Let's hear a little bit about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Celia Amster Bader, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's mother, thought that girls should also have the chance to make their mark on the world, so she took Ruth to the library. On the shelves were stories of girls and women who did big things. Ruth read about Nancy Drew, girl detective. She discovered Amelia Earhart, daring aviator. She learned of Athena, goddess of Greek myths. Here were independent girls and women taking charge. Ruth read her way into this world. Around her, the sweet scent of books blended with the savory aromas from the Chinese restaurant downstairs. Delicious. A girl could be anything. And I love that although when Ruth was born, many people didn't believe that girls could do the same thing that boys could. I love that her mom said, "Yes, you can." And she knew that because she read so many books and learned about so many other brave and bold women. Have you ever visited a library and found books that inspire you? Me too. It's one of the reasons I share so many books here, because I think there are a lot of wonderful, incredible, inspiring people that we should learn about and talk about and learn from. And one of those people is Ruth. So let's keep reading. Sometimes Ruth and her parents took car trips out of the crowded city. As they drove past a hotel in Pennsylvania, Ruth saw a sign. No dogs or Jews allowed. This is how it was in those days. Hotels, restaurants, even entire neighborhoods announcing, no Jews, no colored or black people, no Mexicans, whites only, no, not welcome, no, not allowed. Do you think that's fair? No, I don't either. And Sojourner Truth worked to make people aware of the terrible things that were happening to enslaved people. And even after people were no longer enslaved, they were stopped from going places, or eating in restaurants with other people, or drinking from water fountains that their friends drank out of. And although Ruth was not a black woman, she was a Jewish woman, or in this part of the book, a Jewish girl. And there were prejudices against Jewish people. That means people believed that they were not equal or worthy of the same rights. Ruth and her family were Jewish, and this was prejudice, pure and simple. Now it was Ruth's turn to disagree. She disagreed by never forgetting how it felt to read such words. She never forgot the sting of prejudice. She never forgot what it felt like to feel excluded or not welcomed in a place, just because she was Jewish or just because she was a girl. And so Ruth spent her whole life fighting those inequalities or inequities, things that made people feel unequal or not on the same level or deserving of the same rights as everyone else. So Ruth went to court to fight for equal treatment of women. The most important cases went to the Supreme Court. The first time she appeared there, Ruth was so nervous that she feared she might be sick. By standing before the 9 Supreme Court justices, Ruth imagined them as her students. She, Professor Ginsburg, needed to teach these students, who were all men, why a person's choices shouldn't be limited just because they were born a girl. Ruth wasn't only fighting for women. When women were excluded from the work world, men were excluded from home life. Why shouldn't a father stay home and care for his children and cook the meals? Why shouldn't his wife run a business? These were fresh ideas in 1970s. Ruth did not win every case, but she won enough. With each victory, women and men and girls and boys enjoyed a little more equality. And so Ruth worked to make sure that everyone was given the same opportunities. And she went on to become a Supreme Court justice herself. And if you grab this book, I Dissent, How Ruth Bader Ginsburg Makes Her Mark, you'll learn all about the other incredible parts of her story. But before we end this one, I just want to leave you with the quote on the back. It says, "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." And that was a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So when you speak up and take action, or sit still and listen, or put a plan to work, because it's something that you're passionate about or care deeply about. Make sure you do it in a way that is true to you and true to what you think is important, and you will become a leader, just like these two bold and brave women did. And speaking of becoming leaders, we are actually going to take a mindful moment that is related to a certain type of leader, different than Ruth and Sojourner, but just as interesting. Our mindful moment today is going to be a mindful breath, and it's actually called an elephant breath. And the reason I chose it, you may already know this, is because groups of elephants follow the women in their groups. It's called a matriarchy. And elephants look up to the women leaders, the bold and brave elephant leaders, and follow their instruction, use them as a guide. And so our breath today is an elephant breath inspired by strong female leaders. All you need to do is close your eyes or look down. And as we breathe in, bring our arms up over our head like a big elephant trunk. And as we breathe out, we'll slowly bring it back down. And we'll do this for 5 breaths. Let's give it a try. Elephants, what do you notice about your brain or your body after taking that mindful moment with me? Do you feel bold or brave? Do you feel like an elephant? As I was bringing my pretend trunk up, I was imagining what it must be like to be a really big and strong and powerful elephant. How are you feeling after doing that mindful exercise? Hmm. Confident, silly, brave, peaceful. Thank you so much for giving that a try. And friends, thank you again for visiting with me today. I want to send you off with some love if you'd like it, a hug if you want it, and I can't wait to see you next time.